I guess I'm live now. So welcome to this week's episode of Hella Empowered. And in today's episode, I'm going to give you tips for how to find the right therapist or coach that is right for you. So I am Jen M. Choi. I'm an empowerment coach. I'm a writer, and I've hired multiple therapists and coaches in my life, and that's why I'm happy to share these tips with you guys. So one of the things that I want to talk about today is how to find the right therapist or coach. And why I want to do this is because it's a very challenging and uncertain time for a lot of people. And given that it's a challenging and uncertain time, people might be questioning their own identity. They might be feeling lost. They might be feeling anxious. They might be feeling stressed. You might be triggered by some of the current events that are happening. And so I find that with the pandemic, more and more people are looking to work on themselves, and more people are seeking professional help. And there is no shame at all in hiring professional help. And I have found myself that therapy or coaching has really been game changing, and not only for the difficult times, but also in the good times as well, because the changes that we make in therapy or in coaching are typically very long lasting, and they can help you cope through many different times and cycles in your life. What I've realized is now that we all have more time to pause, reflect, to think about what is it that we really want and what is it that we're struggling with, that more and more people want to look for therapy or coaching. At the same time, I think it's becoming normalized. I think the conversation is shifting, and it's more okay now to talk about our emotions, to seek outside help, to rely on one another. And I hope that we can bust the taboo that hiring professional help is bad or shameful, because it's really not. It's amazing. It's not weak. It's strong and brave to get professional help, whether that's therapy or coaching. And it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you, that you have problems, that you can't make it, or that you are weak. It's but you know somehow that it could be better. And when you reach out to a therapist or a coach, you're taking matters into your own hands. A lot of things are out of control in this world, but you have personal agency to make a change. You have personal agency and you have power, and it's very brave to step forward. I really think so many people in this world could benefit from the help of a therapist or a coach. Now, why am I combining these two things into one video? One could say that therapy and coaching are different, but I think in many ways they're similar as well, and I'm going to go over some of the differences. One of the biggest questions that I get as a coach is, what the freak is the difference between therapy and coaching? And I want to say that no matter how I define it, that it's very nuanced, that it's not black or white. There are different shades of gray in between. And I'm sure some therapists who are watching this will say, wait, I want to add this. And some coaches might say, but wait, I have a different point of view. I'm just sharing what I see, and with my research and experience, what in general are the differences. So when we think about therapy, I really think of it as more rooted in the past. So more rooted in the past, your whatever it is that you want to deal with might be presenting itself in the present, obviously, but a lot of therapy could be anchored in the past. It's often said that therapy is getting to a state of normalcy. You might be repairing something that's broken. You might be seeking wellness. You might be seeking a state of normalcy. A lot of people think that it's just trauma based, but it's not necessarily just trauma based. There's lots of different types of therapy, which I'll go into later as well. But it is for therapy, you don't have to have a mental illness to have therapy. I personally went to therapy in 2016 to begin with because I had a fear of abandonment and I was anxious in my relationship. With therapy, it's also a space where you can work on things like, let's say you have anxiety or depression, or you suspect that you might have another mental illness. This would be more appropriate for therapy. Once again, therapy is not just for mental illness, because I have a therapist now, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with me, but I do want to dive into some of my past stuff that's unresolved with grief, for example. Another thing about therapy is that these are trained, qualified, and licensed professionals. I would think more of therapy as a doctor. You have to pass exams and training. For me, it has a more past-based kind of vibe. At least that's been my current experience. Now, as for coaching, I think of it as more rooted in the present and the future. And this is what other coaches would say as well. So you're rooted in the present, you look to the future. What are your goals? What are your dreams? For example, are you looking to change a career? You feel lost, you feel unfulfilled. You're looking towards a goal of making a career change, for example, or you want to enhance your relationship, or you want to build your business more, for example. And so that's why I think many coaches, and it's widely accepted, that it's more anchored in the present, looking towards the future rather than the past. That said, there are a lot of coaches who also look into the past. For me personally, my personal style of coaching is we will look into the past. We might talk about your childhood, but it is very anchored in the present, and I don't proclaim to be a therapist. We anchor in the present and look towards the future. What's the life that you want to design? I also think of coaching as being a Sherpa, a guide. It's somebody who asks you questions and fundamentally believes oftentimes that you have the answers you need inside. I'm not here to tell you what to do, at least in my style of coaching or in the traditional style of coaching. It's about open-ended questions. It's about helping you find what's right for you. I'm not here to diagnose. I'm not here to tell you you have, some kind of issue. I see you as a whole person. Whereas, once again, going back to therapy, then there might be something that you might be trying to fix and get to a state of normalcy, like kind of like a doctor versus a kind of like a Sherpa in a way. But I also know people who are therapists and coaches. So really the lines blend. But that's my attempt to explain the difference between therapy and coaching. There are also a lot of similarities between therapy and coaching. So similarities between therapy and coaching. A good coach or a good therapist should be able to hold the space for you to process your thoughts and your emotions. A good therapist or coach should also be non-judgmental. You should feel very safe with them. You shouldn't feel judged. And it's very client-focused. The time is focused on you. When you show up to a therapy or coaching session, it's about you. It's not about the therapist or coach telling you their own story and interjecting. This is really a time dedicated to you, and that's why therapy or coaching is so wonderful. It's really this special time for you to work on you. There's also lots of variation in between therapy and coaching, even within their own buckets. So for example, in therapy, there's a ton of different modalities. There's psychoanalytical approach, there's emotionally focused therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, couples therapy versus individual therapy, people who specialize in relationships, people who specialize in grief. There's just a whole lot of options when we go into therapy. And because I'm not a licensed and trained therapist, I'm not going to go into what each of those means. But my point is that there's a lot of different kinds. Now, for coaching, it's the same. In coaching, there's a lot of different kinds. There's life coaching, there's career coaching, there's executive coaching. That's especially if you're a leader in corporate, for example. There's, did I already mention business coaching? That's if you want to enhance your business and you want to increase sales. There's health coaching. There's even grief coaching. There's also relationship coaching. So within therapy itself, there are many different modalities and types. Within coaching itself, there are many types. And I believe this is extremely important to explain. Because when people think about how to find the right coach or therapist, they also need to think, what is it that I'm looking for? What am I trying to solve for here, or what goals am I trying to reach here? Where to start? Let's dive into some of the tips then. So it's honestly, when we think, oh, do I start with therapy? Do I start with coaching? And how? Sometimes it's difficult to know where to start. Once again, it's not black and white. So you could start therapy and realize that you want coaching. You could go with coaching and realize over a course of sessions that you might also need therapy. And there are times when you could have both. So for example, in my own experience, when I hired my first therapist, I also decided I also wanted a coach. For me, these had different vibes. My therapy was exploring some of my childhood, my trauma. What is the root of my anxiety, for example? With coaching, it was like, okay, how? I received homework. How do I move forward? How do I build my business as a new entrepreneur? Because at that time, I had just started my consulting business. And so I believe that sometimes it's also useful to go with both. Some coaches or therapists might disagree with me and think you should only go with one at a time. Once again, the opinions are very varied. That's why I say that when you're thinking of starting, honestly, you can pick one that you suspect might be a better fit and then decide you might want to go with another later on, and that's totally fine. No matter what, I think there is benefit in going to both therapy and coaching at different time points in your life. I think both are highly beneficial in order to get from where you are to where you want to be. I will say that if you suspect that you're dealing with trauma, there's something in the trauma category that you want to deal with, maybe you want to start with a therapist as a first go. If you're wanting to, for example, enhance your business or maybe change careers and it's more goals focused, I would say start with coaching first. And once again, you can always decide that you might need the other. It's hard to know where to start sometimes, but just starting is really, really key because that'll just propel you forward. The next tip I have is research what you're looking for. So as I explained, within therapy itself, there are many different modalities. Within coaching itself, there are many, many different types of coaches. When you're thinking about a therapist, what modality? And when I say modality, what is the type of therapy that they do? Look at their profiles. You can often see the profiles of therapists online. In the modern era, there's usually web presence these days, so you can often see what they write on their website. Does it resonate with you? For example, when I was looking for a therapist recently, it was somebody who could talk about trauma. I decided to go with a psychoanalytic approach so we could explore my subconscious, because there's stuff about my grief after I lost my dad and mom that I'm still working through as I'm writing my memoir. If you're looking for a coach, then in your research, something you might want to consider is what style of coach are you looking for? what are your needs? Because whatever your needs are, there's a different type of coach that could possibly fulfill and support you best. For the next tip, literally, where do you start? What are the channels and sources? So it really depends on where you are. Um, and it differs from country and different regions. But I will say that a very, very good start that I can highly recommend is asking people in your personal network. If you feel shy about sharing it too much, you can ask some of your close handful of friends or family members, hey, do you have a recommendation for a therapist if you're looking for a therapist, or a coach if you're looking for a coach? Because if they've had good experiences with a therapist or a coach, that might be a good lead for you. In the United States, I can say that Yelp was pretty helpful for me. My process at the time finding a therapist in the United States was going on Yelp, looking at highly rated therapists. And then when I went through Yelp to look for highly rated therapists, I clicked into their websites and saw what resonated. In my case, the original therapist that I wanted was completely booked, over capacity, which is probably very, very common right now during this pandemic, but she referred me to somebody else. So oftentimes, if a therapist is not available, they could refer you to somebody else. You can also do Google searches and look at Google reviews as well. There's also platforms in the United States such as BetterHelp. So some of my friends have had great success trying to find a therapist on BetterHelp. It's online. It's a platform where you can just connect with a therapist remotely. So that could be a clue for you if you're looking for a therapist in the United States. In Germany, because I'm a foreigner, it was a bit different. So it really depends. Are you a native of the country that you're in? You probably have access to more resources. Or are you a foreigner? In my case, I'm a foreigner in Germany. And what I did was I went on Google, I looked up different websites and reviews, and in the end, I just asked my friends. So my friend recommended Mittelweg. And Mittelweg 50, at least in Berlin, is an international practice. That was important for me. There are many ways. I'm sure there are also coaching platforms available in whatever country you're in. So have a look at that. I will say it is nice when other people have reviewed your therapist. You know, if they have good reviews, that's usually a good sign. Now, for coaching, it's a bit different. For coaching, there are many ways that you can go about it. Depending on where you are, you can ask friends for referrals, colleagues for referrals. You can go on LinkedIn, type in the type of coach that you want. Business coach, for example, executive coach. That could help you with your search. Social media is also really big as well. My next tip is that chemistry is really, 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 really important. Because you're going to be intimate with this person. You're going to be telling them your deepest, darkest desires, and it can get emotional. So you're really going to need to trust this person, and that's why chemistry is really key when you're looking for a therapist or a coach. So how do you even determine a match? Look at what they have on their website. Does their story and the things that they write, does it resonate with you? Do you say, that sounds like me? And in some cases, it's about what matters to you. Are you a person who really cares a lot about qualifications, certifications, etc.? Where did the person do their training in the case of therapy, for example? What types of clients have they worked with in the past, for example? So finding this chemistry is really key, and you'll get a sense of that on their website, or in the case that you can talk to them, you can get a sense by talking to them. Some considerations are Do you want to work with the male? Do you want to work with a female? What cultural background do you want to work with? So, for example, I know some expats in Germany who would rather work with a non German therapist, for example. When I hired my first therapist in the United States, it was important to me that she understood different cultures because I'm Chinese American. So I can't tell you what's right for you, or what chemistry could look like for you. Only you can determine that yourself. Similar to dating. What do you want in a dating partner? You know, what are your requirements? How do you know that there's good chemistry? You know, only you can know. But it is important to take a stock of different factors. What language they speak, even their native language. Do you want to meet them in person? Do you want to meet them online? I mean, there are so many considerations. So making a list of those can be very helpful for yourself. Also, for coaching, for example, it's a bit more, there's a lot of variety and it can be overwhelming because, once again, there are a lot of coaches, or it might seem that way online. But there are a lot of coaches because there are a lot of people to serve. When you're looking at a coach, what is their professional experience and what is their life experience? What kind of life have they lived? If you're looking to change your career, have they changed careers successfully? If you're looking to build a business, have they built a business successfully? So it's really important that you find a coach, if you're looking for a coach, that lives the values that you also believe in, and that they show up in their lives living the values that they proclaim to help you with. So, for example, for me, I've built multiple businesses. I've changed my career multiple times. I'm also creative as well as a writer. I've also gone through therapy and coaching myself. And so, oftentimes, people who resonate with me or want to work with me see themselves in my life story as well. There's also a lot of different styles of coaching, for example. So some people are very action focused, and some coaches are more talk. You talk, you process, you shift your mindset, but maybe it's less on actions. So to give you an example, for me, I have therapeutic vibes. I tell my clients if they want to work with me, I have therapeutic vibes. Though we're anchored in the present and looking towards the future for your goals to design your life, we may go into the past. And I proclaim and I tell people that. I'm very honest. You may cry in our sessions. It might get very emotional. But we like to get shit done. So I'm a very action-based coach as well, who goes not only into the psychological, but into shifting actions and behaviors. So my clients get homework. And that's what they want. Like, my clients want to get shit done because I work with high achievers. They want to get stuff done, but they also want to shift their mindsets, for example. And I, for example, am very passionate about balance, about not just doing, but also being. So I'm kind of that yin yang. And I work also with male clients, female clients. I really work with both. And so that's just my vibe. So when you're looking for a coach, for example, what is the vibe that you're looking for? What have they accomplished in their lives? Who have they worked with in the past? Do they have testimonials? And that's, I find, very important. And do they come recommended through somebody else? My other tip is that you can try it before you buy it long term. So what I mean by this is you're not married to a therapist or a coach the moment you decide you might want to start working with them. In therapy, you can see how the email exchange goes when you reach out. You can maybe have a call with them. You can book them for a session. With therapy, I would recommend that you work with them at least for a few sessions. With therapy, it's difficult because you're working on stuff that's really deep, usually. And to build that bond, it sometimes takes time. And because of that, it's usually recommended, for example, that you try at least a few sessions with the same therapist before you decide whether you want to continue with them long term. And that's just how it goes. Sometimes you just have to try it before you buy it long term, and just get a few paid sessions, see if there's a vibe, see if you're able to get deeper. With coaching, some coaches offer a consultation. So you can have the opportunity to talk to them before to see if your hopes, your dreams, your goals are things that they can support you with. With coaching, some coaches offer single sessions that you can book, and some don't. For me, I offer, you can book me for a single session one time, but then it's longer programs, 3 months and more from then on. Some coaches don't offer consultations, and that's fine because they might have a lot of content online and they might say, hey, you either resonate or you don't. Whereas therapy is oftentimes, while I do see therapists on social media, I see less therapists on social media creating content, maybe due to the more confidential nature, more sensitive nature, although coaching is also very confidential and sensitive. And that's something that I should also tell you guys, is that no matter what, if you go with a therapist or you go with a coach, confidentiality is really, really, really important. Confidentiality is something that's put into the contract. It's something that's highly valued, and it's safe. And whoever you hire, whatever you share should really be safe and confidential. My last tip is very simple. My last tip is just to make the jump. Even doing that is extremely courageous, it's extremely brave for you to just make the jump. Just do it. Say without shame, say with bravery that, hey, I know my life could be better. I know my life could be better, and so I'm gonna hire some professional help. And I'm going to take matters into my own hands, and I'm going to have personal agency, and I'm going to make a change. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. If you have any questions, you can feel free to either ask in the comments after the show ends, or if you have any now, or you can send me a private message if you have a question. If you're looking for a coach, I'm always happy to chat. I love what I do as a coach, and I love supporting people and helping you guys find your resources. Everything you need is inside of you. It's just a matter of getting the right guidance. Hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully it's inspired some of you or empowered some of you to start the journey on finding a therapist or coach that's right for you. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.